Good evening, everybody. This is going to be the final episode of season one, as we're going to call it, of Behind the Card. And if you're interested in me continuing this series, please let me know. Leave a comment, and any suggestions that you have for future episodes, just let me know. But this is going to be the last episode, episode 10 for season one, we'll call it here. And tonight's card and tonight's topic will be Pete Rose. And I want to be fair here. I want to be honest, and I want to be fair and objective, as I always have tried to be here. And I want to talk about Pete Rose, and I want to discuss his positives and his negatives. And when I'm done, you will have an opportunity to leave comments and agree, disagree. All I am going to ask is that we keep this respectful and that we can agree to disagree without dissolving into personal attacks. I don't believe that will happen, but I just want to start with that disclaimer here. And I think that we all can agree that we can discuss things respectfully, because that's what I intend to do. And I'm going to give you my thoughts here. So, Pete Rose has a lot of positives here, and we'll start with the positives and then we'll go into the negatives. I believe that Pete Rose is the smartest baseball player that I ever saw in my lifetime. I think that his baseball IQ is off the charts. He is the smartest baseball player that I ever watched. The man was dedicated. His passion is unquestionable. And he is one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive baseball player that I ever saw. Wasn't the best player. He was never the best player in his era. He never had a season where you could say, oh, Pete Rose is the greatest player in baseball. I'm sure that some people did, but I think that if you were to look at him honestly, that he was a great player. One of the best, but not the best. He was an unselfish player when it came to where he had to play a position. If he had to move to first base, he would do it. If he had to move to third base, he would do it. If he had to play in the outfield, he would do it. He instilled confidence with his teammates. And that's something that can't be taught. That is something that you either have or you don't have. And when you get experience with anything and you get better at it, you will gain confidence. But it's that leadership, to lead by example and to tell your teammates, hey, you get on base, I'm going to drive you in. Let's go. When you're down 3-0 in Game 7 of a World Series and you have that guy on your team, you get that confidence of, hey, we're going to come back. We can do this. And it's not just Pete Rose, but other players too. And the Reds had that, and the Phillies had that in 1980. And I would argue that without Pete Rose, and to a lesser extent Dallas Green too, because Dallas Green deserves credit as well. Without Pete Rose, the Philadelphia Phillies are not in the World Series in 1980, and they do not win the World Series. They had won the division 3 years in a row, 76, 77, 78. They signed Pete Rose as a free agent in 79. The team had injuries, and Danny Ozark was fired. In comes Dallas Green, and Dallas Green makes some changes, brings in a lot of younger players, and Pete Rose has a great season, as he usually did. Phillies get to the World Series, and they beat the Royals. And if you look at Pete Rose's stats, even after he was 40, because there are some people that will be very cynical that'll say, well, of course he had over 4,191 hits because he played for 20 plus years. Longevity that's not the thing. It's not about longevity. It's what you do in those years. Randy Johnson had a great career. He's a certain Hall of Famer, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. But when I hear people say that Randy Johnson was a better pitcher than Sandy Koufax, because, oh, well, Randy Johnson pitched longer, that's debatable. It's like saying the Rolling Stones are better than the Beatles because, well, the Rolling Stones are still performing and the Beatles stopped. Yeah, but the Beatles went out on top. The Rolling Stones, I mean, are they, okay, yeah, they're still performing, but are they still at the same level as they were when they did Exile on Main Street or Goat's Head Soup? I'll let you answer that question. Pete Rose continued to be an all-star player well into his 40s. And then he started to taper off, obviously, as he got closer to 45. And his last year as a player was 86. He broke Ty Cobb's record in 85 and became a player manager. I believe that Pete Rose was a damn good manager, and he could have been a great manager. The Reds were winners except for his first year, which was near the end of the season when he took over as interim manager in August of 84. But he was a winner every year. The Reds were always in the hunt. Unfortunately, they were always a bridesmaid, never bride. And then his last year in 89, they did finish below 500, and then Rose had to resign because he was banned from baseball. But other than that, from 85 to 88, they were a winning team, and they were usually in the pennant race. Rose is banned from baseball. The Reds hire Lou Piniella after 89, and they win the World Series with a lot of players that Pete Rose helped develop. So, positives for Pete Rose: dedicated. If the score was 10-0 and his team was leading or his team was down 10-0, Pete Rose was going full speed ahead. He was playing 100% of the time. And if you look at the numbers and you look at the records, and if someone were to ask me, does Pete Rose belong in the Hall of Fame? My answer would be yes. Not having Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame is like not having Elvis in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay, there's something wrong. It doesn't make sense. So the positives: he was a winner. He was a leader on the field. And having him on your team, it instilled that confidence, and it made your team better, knowing that, hey, this guy is on our team. And I'm sure that the way he played, that it rubbed off on his teammates. Hey, we have to do that. We have to play at that level here. If he's going to bust his butt, then we have to do that. Pete Rose has a great memory. He remembers all of his records and statistics. And he will acknowledge about, yes, I led in this category and that category, and that is undeniable. The problem with Pete Rose and why he is not in the Hall of Fame is his demeanor. His demeanor rubs a lot of people, most people, the wrong way. He lied for 15 years. Deny. I didn't bet on baseball. The Dowd Report is a bunch of lies. I didn't do it. Not me. I never bet on baseball. Blah, 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 blah. And then he had a book. His first book came out in 2003 or 2004, where he gave an interview on ABC News, and he said, yeah, I did bet, where he told the truth after 15 years. And a lot of people were very angry about that because they had defended him, supported him. but he told the truth. I don't know if he told the whole truth. Okay. Honestly, I don't think he told the whole truth. So what the Dowd report basically stated is that he did bet on games in 87 and 88, during the 87 and 88 seasons as a manager, not as a player. However, there is no evidence that Pete Rose bet on games as a player until ESPN, and this is according to their own research here. Let me go pull this up here in a second. One moment, please. I'm going to look at this here. Find ESPN. So, okay, in June of 2015, ESPN concluded its own investigation of Rose and determined that he had bet on baseball while still a player manager. The results of the investigation were made public, revealing the records of bets made by Rose. Federal authorities had seized the records from one of Rose's associates. Okay. So if there is any evidence to that, it really hurts Rose's chances for A, getting back into baseball in some capacity, and B, getting into the Hall of Fame. And I believe that Rose's demeanor, his attitude, which, with all due respect, comes across as very arrogant a lot of times, and gets very defensive whenever the topic is brought up. He gets very defensive, and I'm sure he's tired of being asked about it in every interview. Did you do, like, he's going to tell you, yeah, I did it, but I made a mistake. Hey, I made a mistake. Hey, do I wish I could go back in time? Yeah, but I didn't, hey, I didn't kill anybody. I didn't take steroids. You're going to get the same answer. You're going to get the same response every single time. I believe that he is being punished, and he will not get into the Hall of Fame while he's alive. He will not get in. Manfred will not put him in while he's alive. Selig did not want to put him in there. And Fay Vincent did not want to put him in there. And Fay Vincent is an interesting guy here. Fay Vincent does not like Pete Rose at all. Does not like him. Why does Fay Vincent, and if you listen to any interview that Fay Vincent, the former commissioner who succeeded Bart Giamatti after Giamatti died, Fay Vincent cannot stand Pete Rose at all. I believe that Fay Vincent believes that Rose has blood on his hands because of Giamatti's death. I believe that Vincent believed that Rose largely contributed to Giamatti's passing. Now, Giamatti was a great commissioner. In the brief time, he was a great baseball fan. And I believe that had he stayed commissioner, we would not have had a strike in 94. I believe that we would have avoided that. I mean, there still would have been some labor issues, but I believe that we would have avoided that strike in 94. I also believe that had Giamatti stayed, had he lived, that the steroid era would not have escalated into what it became. We'll never know, unfortunately. Vincent takes over from Giamatti, and Giamatti, like I said, was loved by many people, and I admired and respect the man. I admired him then, I respect him now. But he also was overweight. He was a smoker, and I believe he had diabetes. He had a lot of health issues, and sadly, that's what ended up killing him. Way too young. And that was a national tragedy, losing him. Vincent was very good friends with Giamatti. And I believe that Vincent has a personal vendetta against Rose, like, you killed my friend. Whether you agree with that or not, that's what Vincent believes, I think. And that's why he was like, hell no, he's not going into the Hall of Fame. Bud Selig replaced Vincent when Vincent was overthrown, and Selig maintain the same posture. He's not getting in. Manfred, same thing. However, I do believe that after Pete Rose dies, that he will get in posthumously. Because after Pete Rose dies, and I hope that's a very long time from now, I hope that Pete Rose lives to be over 100. But after he passes, you're going to see a bunch of people, baseball fans, are going to go, shame on you, Rob Manfred. You kept this man out of the Hall of Fame. Shame on you. Shame on you, Major League Baseball. You hypocrites. You kept this man, blah, 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 blah. And Manfred is going to take the heat for this. Major League Baseball is going to take the heat for this. What I believe is going to happen may not happen right away, but within a year or two, if Manfred is still the commissioner then, he is going to put Rose back on the ballot. He is going to announce that they're going to put Rose on the ballot to be voted. They're not just going to put him in there into the Hall of Fame. That's not going to happen. But I believe that Manfred is going to make Pete Rose on the veterans ballot. They're going to put him on there, and I believe that he will get voted in. That there will be a lot of sympathy and a lot of empathy when people reevaluate Pete Rose's career, and they will say, listen, what he did was wrong. Yeah, what he could, say a lot of things that, you kind of went, yeah, okay, Pete, whatever. But when you look at the records, when you look at what he accomplished on the field, and another key thing is that you're going to see a lot of these older veterans, a lot of these men that have been part of the Hall of Fame, a lot of them are passing away. And this very conservative group, the Baseball Hall of Fame, very traditional, very conservative. But I believe the younger people are a lot more liberal and a lot more sympathetic to Pete Rose. And there are a lot of people that still, they might be middle-aged, and even now, a lot of them are middle-aged and baby boomers, but they're still that 8-year-old kid. And they still look up to Pete Rose. There's that hero worship factor. And even former players that they grew up watching Pete Rose, and they're going to be sympathetic, that they're going to say, hey, like I said earlier, what's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame without Elvis Presley? What's the Baseball Hall of Fame without Pete Rose? And he will get in. He'll get in there, and either his son, Pete Jr., or maybe his grandson will give the speech, which I believe Pete has already written. I think he's already written his speech, and he'll give it to them and say, listen, if I pass on, I want you to read this, and it'll be, thank you. My father really wanted to be here today. He really wanted to be with all of you, the fans. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and here's his speech. And a lot of it will probably be the same stuff that he said, yeah, I messed up, but, I'm sorry I did this. And there might be a surprise in there. There might be something that he never told anybody that people go, wow, I wasn't expecting that. But he will get in there posthumously. I believe that. And I'm going to conclude here by talking about one of the things that I hear a lot of people say, which is the hypocrisy. And we've heard this argument a lot, which is, they'll talk about Pete Rose and then they'll say, this broadcast was brought to you by DraftKings. And we have seen an increase in Major League Baseball's alliances with gambling. And this is another topic for another day, but my personal opinion here is I'm uncomfortable and uneasy with DraftKings and sites like that. It's very uncomfortable to me. I'm not against gambling and betting. If it's legal, fine. I've done it. When I was a kid, my grandparents took me to the racetrack and we bet legally. I went to the Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida, and again, legal gambling. I didn't go crazy. It was one time, but I'm just telling you all that. But I will say this. I can see how this can be addicting. And there are a lot of young people out there, mostly men, that are using these sites and probably using their credit card. And I'm here to tell you, the difference between a credit card and a debit card is a debit card is really for something that you want. A credit card is really for something you need. If you have a problem with your plumbing and your toilet is on the fritz and you need to get that fixed and it costs you a couple $100, hopefully you have a nice emergency savings plan. That's first and foremost. I promise you, we're not going to turn this into Dave Ramsey, okay? I just want to point out that you don't want to use your credit card because you might have a credit limit of $5,000, $10,000, and think, well, I got $10,000 credit limit. That's not a problem. That money can go by fast because I can see how addicting that this can be, gambling. I can see how, like I said, everything in moderation, it can be addicting. And I think that's what happened to Pete Rose. Is it started off as a little bit, and then it just got more and more and more and more till he became addicted. And when I watch a sports event, a sporting event, a baseball game, a football game, basketball, hockey, etc., I'm watching it for the game. I'm not thinking about, oh, I wonder how much money I won today on DraftKings. Oh, I wonder how much money I'll get. So that is something that I understand why people raise about the point about hypocrisy, and why I'm not really a fan of Major League Baseball aligning itself with sites like that. I want Major League Baseball to be a leader, not a follower. I want Major League Baseball to stand apart from the NFL and the NBA. And one of my biggest criticisms of Major League Baseball is they have become a follower. The NFL has a wild card. We've got a wild card now. The NFL has instant replay. We've got instant replay. The NFL has a challenge rule. We have a challenge rule. And it's following. Okay, it might work in some cases, but I want Major League Baseball to be its own unique entity and be a leader, not a follower. And like I said earlier, Pete Rose was a leader. And there are many great accomplishments that he did on the field. And like I said, the smartest baseball player that I ever saw. But what he did was stupid. He's not an idiot. But what he did was stupid because he threw it all away. And he definitely could have had his moment. And I know that there will be people that'll say things like, well, he didn't do this. Well, he could have done worse. Yes, that is true. But I think that it sets a very dangerous precedent when we start, what's the word I'm looking for here? Categorizing mistakes and saying, well, this one wasn't as bad as that one. Wrong is wrong, okay? And I'm just telling you what I believe Major League Baseball will do, because I don't think he's getting in while he's alive, and that's part of their punishment. Is that right? That's for you to decide, I believe that what he did was wrong. And again, it's his demeanor. He's in my opinion, he's never really been genuinely contrite, from what I can tell. Now, I could be wrong, okay? But it's his demeanor that I think turns a lot of people off. And that's why I think Major League Baseball is keeping him out while he's alive. And yeah, it's sad, that he will get that day, most likely after he's gone, and he won't be able to partake in that. But that's what I think is going to happen here. But I want to just say, for the record here, that I don't have any personal vendetta against Pete Rose. And I loved watching him play when I was a kid, and I've seen clips of him since then, from back in the day. And everything I said is true and genuine, because he was a hell of a player. And he made his teams better. Even the Montreal Expos, in the brief time that he played, he played with Montreal in early 1984 before he was traded back to the Reds. And if you watch that clip of his first game back in Cincinnati, which I watched that game, the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs were playing that game in Riverfront Stadium. And in his first at bat, he gets a base hit and he slides into third, headfirst slide. And that crowd was electric. The Cincinnati Reds were terrible that year, and they were going nowhere, but Pete Rose showed up, and that crowd was re-energized. And you can see that game on YouTube. August 1984, when Pete Rose returned to Cincinnati. And yeah, that's the kind of thing that Pete Rose brought, because you know what? He was a star. Very few players are stars when you know that you have a star. Maybe icon is the word they would use today. And he had that. And we don't have many players like that today. And as I said, he was very dedicated and he was a winner. And those are the strong points, the positives that he had. But you also have to look at the negatives. And I hope that Pete lives to be over 100. And I wish him good health. But when he does pass, you got to look at the good and the bad. I know there's this unwritten rule that, well, we can't speak ill of the dead. I don't agree with that. That we don't say anything negative. I don't think that we ought to trash somebody who passed away, but I think that we need to be honest and we need to be fair and objective. And Pete Rose had many good points, and he has many good qualities, but there are also the flaws too. And as I stated, his demeanor, which I think turns off a lot of people and makes a lot of voters, especially in the Hall of Fame, reticent about, well, I'm not suggesting that Pete Rose, cried his eyes out and started blubbering and getting down on his knees and doing that. But I think that if he was more contrite, if he was more genuine and dropped the attitude that he has sometimes, this attitude, because he gets very angry and the denial, if he just were to just drop that, who knows, maybe things might be different here. But I don't have a vote. But I do believe that he will get in there, and but sadly it'll be after he passes on. So I just want to say that this is his 81 card here, and he had a hell of a season, and he rarely missed a game too. He was quite durable, and that is something that is commendable. I really like that in a player when someone shows up. I like that for anybody that shows up for work. And I'm sure that he played in pain many times, but he was there. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and try to be gentle. This is the last episode of the season, and if you want me to do more, I will. So thank you for watching, everybody. I appreciate it very much, more than you will ever know. Let's hope for a better day tomorrow. Take care.